losing that spot. We've kind of gone over what Arteta is developing. Odegaard's the captain. Martinelli's grabbed your shirt off the left-hand side, which was yours. You're just simply going to have to be patient. It's unfortunate, but injuries, loss of form, rotation, all of these things happen across the season. And we're now getting into that period where it's a thing. It's just a case of, as you said, when you get your opportunity in a match, take it. Make sure you're training, which, again, I'm not privy to. Take your opportunities in training to give Arteta that problem. And like you said with Eddie Nketiah, if I don't start him, I'm an idiot. There's something wrong with me, really and truly. It's a pivotal year. If you want to get into the Euros team, which I think you're going to miss out on, really and truly, because I don't see you getting the football, you're just going to have to take it. Next question, which is very important, and one that I've offered my thoughts. Why do we switch off defensively at home more than on the road? Ramsdale offered kind of some segments into that, really, but what do you make of that?
I don't know. I think
crazy, isn't it?
There's a sort of more straightforward mental answer, which is, we're more focused away from home and whatever. Like, I don't know how much that plays into it. I think a large part of it is luck, to be honest. Like, that Pereira goal, I don't think goes in if he doesn't miss kick it. I think that is a miss kick. I think about the goal against from like Billing. They just caught us by surprise a couple of times, and that happened. So I don't read into it as much. I think it's just an anomaly. And I think sometimes we try and read into it and think there's a wider issue, but I do think a lot of it is an anomaly. I think as part of it that we attack more at home, and therefore, we come out. I can't imagine Arteta's sat there before a game against Fulham talking about our defensive structure. I imagine he's talking mostly, especially in that, he will do it during the week, but especially in that conversation just before they go out there. I can't imagine the conversations are, let's keep it tight. Let's calm, let's knock it out of that for a bit. These guys are really good. We're going, right, here's how we access the half spaces. Here's how we get those cutbacks. Here's how we, here with that defender, he doesn't like it when you pull him this way. So do that, so those will be the conversations. So that's our mindset, is thinking forward. But then also, does that explain it? I don't know. So yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I think it's probably a combination of luck, combination of being at home in terms of our focus, and a combination of an anomaly, and probably a couple of other things as well.
I don't think it's one singular thing. I've always said, I think we're an improved defensive side. I don't think we're a good defensive side necessarily. If I'm completely honest, I think there's a mixture of things. I think like you said, at home, we're a lot more front-footed. I think our players kind of feed into the fans or the energy the fans are given, because we're going to be more attacking, more inventive, more expansive. I think we're a lot more open on the transition. Obviously, not to say we don't approach games away from home in the way we do at home. I just feel away from home, you've kind of got to respect people's houses a bit. The 12th man's against you, and you just need that added bit of focus, really. So I think, and Ramsdale actually said it in an interview, he said it's a mixture of things. I just think it's a mixture of things. I would just say home and away, and I know everyone would say this about every goal you concede. I just think we're very naive in stages. I think football's about asking yourselves the right questions. And I look at, fair enough, not to absolve Kai Havertz of losing the ball in the midfield, but that's just one point of call. We've lost it in their half, where we've actually pressed and won the ball back very well. We're caught, we're all at 6s and 7s. I look at Benjamin White and Saliba. You've got to ask yourselves the right questions. Rashford, he's got it on his left-hand side. Everybody knows. I can't tell these lot about Premier League football, but everybody knows he wants to put it on his right foot. Arsenal fans, we've seen Rashford do that. He's firmly in and becoming the Jogba, the Harry Kanes, the Wayne Rooneys, the Vardys of these nemesis against Arsenal. You've got to make it tougher for him. You can't allow him on that favoured side. So I think it's a mixture of things. I just think we need to be a bit more mature in terms of how we defend. And actually, that's highlighted against Fulham. Fair enough, whether Saka's lost the ball, whether Ramsdale's been caught out, whether it's a bit of luck from Pereira, either way, it's kind of happened. I'm more disappointed in the last goal we conceded, because again, you can't afford for that to happen. You're 3 minutes from 90th minute down to 10 men, and it's another set piece. So I just feel we're an improved defensive side. We're not as good as I think we can, and I think that goes for everybody. So simply put, I don't think it's just down to one thing. I'd love to hear Mikel Arteta shed some light on it, but their metrics are going to have to improve. We've gone so far in this video, bro, and we haven't spoken about a former winger. Now, someone that you and I, this would probably be the last video we ever talk on these individuals, or a certain individual. Nicolas Pepe's left. I think the most important thing from this was we've agreed to terminate his contract with immediate effect. So the rumors of getting anything from 1 to 3 million quid are kind of done. And yeah, what's your feelings on Pepe? He's obviously joined Trabzonspor on a deal until next year with an option of a further year. What do you make of that? And he's the latest termination since 2020. What do you make of him obviously departing the football club?
Yeah. That's a strange 11 going back to When did Fabianski leave? Like 2014?
2020, yes, I was forcing agendas. 2014, he left on the free. To be fair, this team would in the midfield and in the opposition's half, we'd be quite decent defensively. No chance. No chance.
Didn't we line
Probably
up like
relegation standard.
Yeah, nothing wrong with Mustafi, right? Yeah, it's the first time I've seen him smile in about 2.5 years. So to be honest,
yeah, I saw your tweet about that.
I'm kind of happy for him in a way. Like he clearly wasn't enjoying it at Arsenal. That's fine, and best of luck to him. In terms of the termination thing, that is a loss that our owners are eating. Do you know what I mean? Like it is. So to some degree,
massive L.
We have to credit the owners because they have approved that decision. It's not just
biting the bullet.
Oh
essentially.
God, Edu, you've did this, that, and the other. It's like this was a player who. It's like, I think you can look at Eddie Nketiah, for example. I think he's a fantastic player. But right now, our biggest threats in our team are our wingers. So we need a more facilitative 9. That doesn't make Eddie a bad player. It just means that when that facilitative 9 is available, he's not going to be in. In the same way that, for example, you don't put Gabriel at right centre back because he's got You don't put Gabriel at right centre back because he's left-footed and he's much better on that side. You put players in the best positions to suit their skill sets, and we understand that until a player's out of a team, and then we go, "Why aren't they playing?" It's like, well, hang on a minute. What is Pepe's skill set? He needs space to travel into. That's what he needs. He's not a close combination player. He's not someone who's a particularly reliable receiver. He has lots of other skills. He's a great ball striker. He's someone who can come in and cut in off the left-hand side and has that shot, obviously. He's I think when he came centrally, he was pretty good, but that's not what we need him to be. And it doesn't make Pepe a bad player. It doesn't make him, a flop or whatever. You can look at his numbers.
He just don't fit the system.
He just didn't fit, and that's fine. And like it's just, I think what's frustrating is also we're 4 years into Arteta, and this has only just been resolved. But now we've literally got El Neni left, and then I think everyone else is an Arteta.
Everyone's a new boy. Even Rob Holding couldn't last.
Yeah, and then we're having a different conversation, so that's fine. But with the last few, with Holding, with Pepe, whatever, this is just a case of we had a new manager. He didn't fancy Pepe because he didn't suit the system. When you're playing it for Man United, I would have taken a gamble considering what's going on with their right wingers at the minute. I would have said, "Look, come here, why not for a free contract? Come in, like let's see if we can get him motivated. Let's see what."
But then if they did that, they'd be shooting themselves in the foot because the past record don't look good, really. I would love to them to do that, but it don't look good, really. Pepe probably goes there and stinks up the joint. It's right what you said in that. I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit shocked when years ago when Pepe initially kind of got phased out of the team because I think Arteta is always planning something. When I look at Aubameyang, and I know his was different, but Aubameyang, Xhaka, Tierney, Tomiyasu, and obviously Pepe, it looks a bit like Arteta's kind of utilizing you, and then you kind of get put to the side. But then I look at his Arteta's just whatever he's done at that moment, he's doing that for there and now, and he's always got one eye onto the future. I agree with you in that. Pepe, in terms of natural ability, I think there's few players in the Arsenal team that could offer more. But as you know, it's not about ability. It's about consistency. It's about how good you are at your worst. It's about what you're doing across 90 minutes. You look at Saka and Martinelli. Not saying Pepe couldn't, but look at Saka and Martinelli against United. Neither player had an amazing game. More so, Martinelli was more of a threat than Saka, but one got an assist for Declan Rice to obviously bag. Martinelli was a constant threat. I don't know if Pepe does that. I think where we was getting with Pepe, the only way I would kind of sanction keeping him is that he's like a wild card. He's kind of what Reece Nelson was last season and to a degree Smith Rowe against Bournemouth. And actually Fabio in that, whatever Arteta's planned in the week, as you know, everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the face. It's a very different ball game. Pepe, he might cost you a game. He might ultimately cost you a game because he might lose the ball in the transition and then whatever. But in another game, he might just dance past 3 or 4 players and smack it in from 30, 40 yards. I would have kept him to be that. And I just don't feel, as much as I like Nelson and what he's developing at, I just feel Pepe's probably in terms of ability, someone that could have asked questions of Saka. But I don't think Pepe doesn't strike me as someone that isn't serious, but doesn't strike me as someone that's continuously going to like impress during training and he's going to be very hot and cold. Essentially.
And I think that's the thing that we lump all football players into the same bracket of like, well, they all want to be the best player in the world. They all want to be Ronaldo and Messi, and they're all just trying as hard as they can to get there, and they're either trying or they're not. And I think like, yes, Tim Drake, Brockman.
You got Tim.
We put them all in that mindset. I watched a video of Thibaut Courtois on his honeymoon this morning, and he's on the beach like practicing diving and jumping and like running across the sand and stuff.
Madman
That's why
stuff.
he is where he is, like because he's on his own holiday. He's on his own. Yeah, sorry, he would have performed if Arteta managed him properly. Okay.
I mean, everyone's allowed their opinion, man. I mean, I like Pepe. I like Arteta. I like Arsenal more. I'm willing to entertain the Pepe talk, but it's going two different ways, isn't it? I don't want to die on the Pepe hill. I think if he would have performed, he would have done it at Nice. Didn't pull up any trees there. Fair enough, Pepe. In terms of ability, it's great. I know there's many other things around it, but for all the talk around Saudi Arabia and Besiktas, you've got to move basically having tore up your contract to Turkey. So there was hardly anybody queuing up for him. And I know many people say his wage demands, etc. If he was that good, teams will pay your wages. You know, if you it's a terrible example, but if you commit a crime and you want the best lawyer to help you get away with it, he's gonna cost a lot more money than someone with a boot cut jeans and his clothes all right. It comes with the territory, doesn't it? Really, if you want to get away with something, you have to pay the rates. You know, Beyonce. If I become a singer and Beyonce is a singer and we're both getting bookings for wedding parties, Beyonce is gonna get paid a lot more than me because she's actually good at her job. So I don't think Pepe is the hill to die on. I definitely think throughout his time at Arsenal, there was times he could have been utilized a bit more. I look at the Willian kind of period, but again, Willian was Arteta's guy, rightly or wrongly. Pepe, Arteta didn't really have his hands with that. He could look around and say, I didn't buy him. It's not really my fault. And I think the fact that Pepe went to Nice and didn't really do anything, whatever you say about what was going on at Nice, you didn't do nothing, did you really? Yeah. Like, you know, we're not having a conversation. We all know Pepe is good, but it weren't like you had a great loan spell. We're not talking about him to the way some people were discussing Balogun, for example, who's obviously been sold. Moving away from Pepe and looking at Eddie Nketiah, would you say Eddie Nketiah is the new first choice striker at this moment in time? And I saw this tweet from you, and I've had it up for a while. Explain this to us, man. Kind of helps the Eddie Nketiah Jesus debate.
Well, yeah, it's just. Also, could you go on SofaScore and look up Jesus' heat map from last season? Because it's crazy, man. This is a facilitative striker, right? Like his non-penalty goals are
cut the chat off topic. Nobody said Havertz is necessarily going to come good, but yeah, let's have selective hearing. But go on, my friend.
So yeah, if you go on his heat map on SofaScore as well. So I'm gonna get that now. Yeah, so it's essentially. Jesus is a facilitative striker, and you can see that in his heat map. You can see that in what he's doing. Like in terms of his numbers against forwards, he's so involved in the play, and his expected assist. I think he got his expected assist numbers last season. He got like doubled in terms of his actual assists. Like do
you want me to keep this up as well? You're still explaining this?
No, sorry. Go on SofaScore. Yes, just SofaScore.
First time you ain't got onto the tabs, mate. Crazy.
I will at some point.
That's a bit of
tab police will be out. But yeah, if you look at last season, like he is a facilitative striker, and like as much, I think Eddie is so good. Like I really do think he's not in that. He's obviously not in that Haaland category. He's probably not in that Isaac kind of Nunez category, but maybe the one below.
There's big him up, but there's no probably about it. He's not, man.
He's not in that category, but he is. Is that for just scroll up?
That's last season.
Probably last season. If you just zoom
and obviously in. This is this season for context, but he's only. This is this season for context, people, but he's played about 14, 15, 12 minutes, so you're not going to see too much there. But
you can see that, like, that is not a central number 9 centre forward that we all like, you know, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Evan Ferguson, you know, between the boxes. Like, this is a facilitative striker. And the reason I mention that is because, and you look at his numbers and how involved he's in play and all that sort of stuff, and his expected assist numbers, our main threats are our wingers. In terms of non-penalty XG, like they score our most goals and also creating space for
there are match winners. Not to take anything from Jesus, but goals win games if we just simplify football, and they're the most likely to bag.
Big and Odegaard as well, because
Martin Odegaard, the class region as well.
The class region, nice. When you look at the goals that Odegaard's scoring, they're from the top of the box where your number 9 might be. Like it's because
Goldstein runs into the box.
Jesus has vacated those locations, so he's creating play for us, and that's why. You can't have and I think it's partly why our attackers looked a little bit shaky, is because Eddie is great, but he's not at the level of facilitation of Jesus. Like he can't do that. It's broadly a false line.
There's nothing wrong with it. He's just not that. I think Eddie Nketiah has shown himself to be a worthy number 2. I think with 4 games being into the season, and listen, on one hand, for me, if Jesus is fit, you always play. But just calling it for what I see it, I think Eddie's been one of the best players early doors, and I think he really is improving. And I think he's not I don't want to say justifying his contract because that's not for me to answer, but he's justified getting a new deal. He's looking to be a relative household name in the Premier League. You kind of touched on Ferguson. I don't know for a fact Arsenal going to buy a striker, but on the basis of we've been linked with Ivan Toney, linked with Ferguson, linked with Osimhen, and we're not City, we're not treble winners, so we can't say there's not many areas for improvement. But in terms of recruitment, I could argue a centre mid. I think everyone would want a winger. Maybe Arteta wants another defender, but that striker, that guy that could take us from being an 80-odd goal a season team to 100 plus, that can turn some draws into victories. That seems like the area that we're missing. And, that may or may not be Eddie. Eddie might sit there and say, do you know what? I'm in the England squad. I've given it a good try, but Jesus and the next man might be in front of me. I might need to depart the club. And if we bring in another striker, who knows? But I think Eddie's justifying it. Do you think Jesus it's a gift and a curse how he plays? Because I'm sure you've seen it. I can't remember what Zinchenko said word for word, but he's like, I think he spoke with Rio and he said, sometimes I tell Jesus just to stand up front because he's too busy per se. Obviously, in the modern day, you need to do what he does.
I hear what Zinchenko's saying. I think that's more for the kind of perception of Jesus. Like the idea, like if he scored more goals, he would be considered in a different way.
He's too good not to get 20, 30 league goals, man. 20 as a minimum.
Yeah, and I think he could if he played in a different way. But the problem is what he does is so good for the team and for the rest of the attack and the rest of our attacking players that he's kind of got a rod for his own back. I think probably long term, just to go back to what you were saying, it would be good to have both that facilitative 9, if that's Gabby Jesus, hopefully sticks around, and Evan Ferguson and Osimhen, because then you can say we can play with a more 20-goal a season striker who's going to turn those draws into victories, and also you can play with a facilitative player who can bring other teams in, as we've seen with
then
Jesus.
You got Jesus out wide as a possibility. You could argue on current form, it could be a possibility. Now Saka's not going to lose his spot. I don't think Eddie in theory should necessarily be dropped. Neither do I with Martinelli, but you could argue Jesus, Nketiah and Saka could be at least for a game, could be our first choice front three, really, even though I don't quite agree.
Yeah, but give it a game. Like, why not? I think there's not going to be any set. Yes, that American Gooner. There's not going to be
American Gooner.
If you get a example, Osimhen, who leaves, Eddie or Jesus? I think it'll be Eddie because.
Sorry, I was just about to type in Eddie. I typed in Jesus by accident. Yeah, it'd have to be Eddie. It'd have to be Eddie because Jesus has been signed. He's Arteta's man. Not to knock Eddie and Nketiah, but he's better. Jesus is better than you. It is it is really and truly. He's more adaptable. Like Eddie, in theory, can play out wide. I don't think anybody really wants to kind of see that. So, yeah, it would have to be Eddie Nketiah, really. And he might come to a scenario where he thinks, you know what, I need to go somewhere. I kind of play 10-odd games. I do like his mentality. I do like the fact that he's forced his way into the manager's thinking. I do like what Eddie Nketiah is developing as. I think the only thing, and it's both of them, really, but I think Eddie Nketiah is just missing goals. That it's the hardest thing to do, just scoring goals. That's the only thing for me. It doesn't look composed. I think he's shown that, in isolation, he did it. For me, one of the best performances of Eddie Nketiah's was actually Spurs away last season, which was a great team performance. But I always look at our strikers, how you perform against the Martinez's, the Romeros, City's defenders, the household names. And I think Eddie Nketiah has shown he can equip himself. And I think the game against Man United that we last played, I saw Eddie Nketiah do that a few times when he came in for Jesus last year. In that, obviously in May, we're not going to remember Eddie Nketiah was great against Man United. There's no statistics to kind of back that up in terms of goals and assists. But it's about how you affect the game without scoring. And he didn't really get presented with clear-cut chances. And I think Eddie will make us a decent fee if we do cut him from the cloth, man. But you made a great point in that if we could have the best of both worlds, it'd be amazing. But while I think there's scope for 3 strikers, I just don't see a world where you get an Osimhen and Ivan Toney, or in 17, 18 months, there's a next striker on the scene like Højlund and Vlahovic. I can't see you having them, Jesus and Eddie Nketiah. If Eddie's comfortable to do what he's doing, but surely you're stagnating yourself, essentially.
No. And I think that is the move. I think we're all thinking next summer is the move.